What I have with me today is the TRN M10, and the very short of this review is going to be, I kinda like it, and I can legitimately recommend it, especially for its low price. And to know the actual magnitude of this statement, I usually do a lot of the cheaper, the more budget IMs. I usually categorize it into the usual two groups. Either I like them, but they suck and I can't recommend them. For example, the previous review of the CCACST I had about 1 to 2 weeks ago, depending on when I released this video, and the one that is pretty good, but they suck, so I don't really like it. The case in point, the QKZ-VK4, they have something, they have substance, but they suck at everything else. And there are some things like the Sony MH755 just does it all. They're decent sounding, they have good tonal balance, they have good technicalities, and I like them, so I can wholeheartedly recommend them, even though they are a bit more difficult to find nowadays, I guess. And maybe not, depending on where you live or the community around you. And I can officially place the TRN MT1 at the same group as Sony MH755, which is a huge deal. That's the TLD of this review. The build quality, to be honest, the actual IM it's just okay. I guess it's made out of plastic, somewhat type of EDX plastic. The nozzle here is, I think it's also plastic. However, there are two types of batches for the MT1s. This is the first batch with this type of nozzle. I don't know if it's focusing. My camera sucks, so they don't do autofocus. Yeah, but there are new ones with a quite recessed type of nozzle, which hopefully don't change the sound, because the sound's good enough as it is. And they do have a fixed typo. They fixed the typo in here, which spelled dynamic. So it's kind of like blonde with its opoti and triams, I guess. And yeah, what I would like to talk about in the build quality region is how absolutely abhorrently garbage and retarded the cables are and the ear tips are. These are the type of ear tips that you're gonna get, and these are the type of ear tips that you're just gonna instantly discard after you got them, because they are practically unusable and they're made out of very cheap rubber and plasticky type of rubber that is absolutely useless. However, usually you have at least a decently made or decently designed cable that you can actually wear or use. However, this cable is unusable, because if you actually look at the cable and how the ear hooks, I don't really like ear hooks in general. I think the without ear hooks is definitely more comfortable without ear hooks, and I don't know, I just feel more secure without than with ear hooks. So I don't really like ear hooks in general, but this just takes the fucking cake, because this is the Hazard Sound hot mirror cable. It's quite pricey, IM. However, the cable is just a regular cable, I guess, hopefully. If you look at the ear hooks at the Hazard Sound hot mirror, you will notice that you will probably get this type of shape that goes behind your ear. And that's the point. That's the fucking point of ear hooks. They secure the cable right behind your ear. However, the jackasses at the TRN decided to follow the most outer part of your ear, which is fucking retarded. I mean, this have no function anymore. This doesn't secure anything to anything. So what I usually do with this type of ear hooks is you can actually peel the plastic cover, like the ear hook, so it's just gonna be like a regular cable. And the thing is, they actually double down on this retardedness and they double shield the ear hook, so it's double coated piece of shit. So it's very, very difficult to just regularly peel one. Or I'm just that dumb and I don't know how to peel one. There's like a magically easy way to peel ear hooks, and I just don't know how. But for me, these are basically useless. So, in my opinion, treat yourself. This is a decent IM, and treat this IM because this is well deserving in terms of sound quality. For a better cable, just buy a cheap TRN cable like the TRN T2s, or get something like this, like the, I think it's called, is it a nice HCK 4.4 cable if you have the a balanced 4.4 amp like the topping I have right here. So yeah, the IMs, they are good enough for better accessories. Now let's get to the sound quality. For the general tuning of the IMs, I would consider them to be, they are, it's quite difficult actually for me to know what type of sound is it, because they sound kind of V-shaped. They do sound V-shaped. However, they are not the generic type of KZ or the TFZs or the usual type of V-shape that you'll find in usual budget hi-fi. They don't have a very elevated sub bass, so they do. So yeah, that's a general tone. To get to the bass, they do have elevated bass. However, they don't have an elevated sub bass that kind of muddles, like compresses the sound presentation, which IMs such as the QKZ VK4 or the Blono Freeze or the usual KZ EDX or the CCAC STs have the type of sub bass presentation. It's not even a smidge of a problem here. They do have elevated bass, however, just not as elevated as a lot of the budget V-shape sounding hi-fis would sound. So it's definitely a plus. But though if you're looking for the deepest sub-bass extension, you're not going to get it here as much as you're going to get it there. So yeah, it doesn't really bloat that much, but it's still elevated in the bass region. You do have quite a bit of body, however not so much. Also, it's not as overwhelming as a lot of the other hi-fi options you have out there in the market. In the mid-range, you do sound, the sounds in the mid-range has a little bit of a dip, and you would notice that actually. Some of the fundamental tones of the vocals might get, female vocals especially, might get a bit drowned out, like it might have a bit of a recess. However, or brighter male vocals do sometimes do that also. However, the harmonics of the vocals are accentuated quite actually a lot. Because these are a bit shoutier than what I would prefer them to, but they are extremely budget. They're about $10, so I guess that's forgivable. So yeah, the mid-range here is Not my favorite part, however, it's good enough, I guess. It's forgivable enough. It doesn't have an extreme peakiness or like extreme dipping. They are just regular peaks and the regular hi-fi shoutiness, if you can say it like that. Also in the upper mid-range, they do have a bit more elevation. Also with the lower treble, which we're getting to the treble right now. The lower treble do have quite a bit of elevation. If you remember the review of the Dunu Lunas we had before, we do mention that they have quite a bit more elevated lower treble, and they do dip also, like the MT1s. The MT1s also dip like the Dunu Lunas in the treble proper region, and they rise back up kind of like the Dunu Luna also at about 8K in the 8K region. So yeah, I guess it's quite interesting on their tuning. They are kind of like the more V-shape and less refined tuning of the Dunu Lunas, and they don't sound like Dunu Lunas, but yeah, I guess that's the overly simplified explanation of the general tuning. Actually, there's quite a bit of a fresh air in the hi-fi market, because they are not overly V-shaped. They do still have that kind of exciting energy of a V-shaped headphone. However, they don't really sound that V-shaped, and they kind of sound neutral-ish, but they're definitely not neutrally tuned, I guess. So yeah, it's quite in a difficult place. The technical performance, however, it's quite good all around. They have quite a decently expansive soundstage. They have quite good instrument separation, which kind of surprised me to have that caliber of instrument separation at this price range. They also have quite a bit of stage depth, however, not the deepest. Stage width, not the widest. Though they do have quite a bit there. They are not the most detailed, however, they're quite detailed, especially for its price. They're definitely a shocker, I guess, in that department. And resolution, detail is also, yeah. Detail and resolution is good. Transience is pretty okay. The timbre presentation, I do feel that the tuning the tuning is a bit of the Achilles heel of this timbre presentation, because like the Dunu Luna, it doesn't sound as refined. It doesn't sound as realistic as it should be if it's better tuned, I guess. So it's okay, I guess. The timbre presentation is definitely better than those extremely chi-fi-ish V-shaped sound IEMs like the EDX or the CST. So yeah, they're pretty good, especially for its price. Now for the comparisons, let's get to these two headphone IEMs first, because I actually mentioned them in the comparison with the CCA CST video. Against the VK4, it's kind of like a toss-up, but not for me, because the TRN MT1 definitely 100% outclasses the VK4 in terms of technicalities. However, the tonality and the tonality of the VK4 is noticeably quite significantly better than the TRN MT1s. It's not that the MT1's tonality is bad. They're definitely not bad. In fact, they're definitely not bad, especially at this price range. But the tonal balance of the VK4 is just that good. So yeah. But the rest is just absolutely garbage and useless. So I would still favor the MT1 because I prefer technicality over tonality. But I do understand people who would be in favor of the VK4. Against the EDX, these have better instrument separation, they have better staged, but better instrument placements, similar amount of detail. This is a bit more V-shaped sounding, quite a bit hot there in the treble region, a bit deeper sub bass. However, it's quite a bit congesting type of sub bass. So the Tian MT1 is definitely a winner here. I don't know why these aren't hyped as much. It's definitely in my country. I'm in Indonesia. I would prefer these to be hyped more than the EDX, but KZs do what KZs does best. Hype things. Against the MH755, this is actually quite an interesting battle because, yeah, it's the MH755 and they're in the same category as the MT1 as being both I like them and good. So yeah, the MH755 edges in tonality. It's better tuned. However, the MT1 is better technically. And the difference between the technical prowess of these two IMs is just very small. It's more in the detail retrieval, which the MT1 is better at. And the definition also, but though that a lot of those are because of that, the more elevation in the definition range in the MT1s than in the MH755. And with the less sub bass in the MT1s, they do have a bit more open type of presentation than the MH755. So you also got that going. However, in the MH755, you have much more agreeable tuning. You have it's actually quite harmonish tuned. It's not as shouty. It's not as it's not as imbalanced sounding as the mid-range of the MT1s. So both of them have things to one-up each other, though they're not significant enough for me to say that which one is better. So yeah, I sometimes prefer the MH755, sometimes I prefer the MT1, so I guess that's it. I do have quite a bit more pricier IMs right here, which are the Final E1K, the Hyphaman RE400s, and the Blonde 03s. Why I choose them? Because the Final E1000 is what would you expect for something. If what I would recommend, if you're gonna look for something neutral, natural sounding, and you want a no nonsense natural sounding, and you don't really care about technicalities, the cheapest you can get is probably these two, the E1000 or the RE400. If you want something a bit warmer, you go with the E1000, but if you want something a bit more with a bit more treble energy, however not so much, the RE400. You want to upgrade from the warmer, but you want a bit more treble detail, you go with the Tin T2s. But the Tin T2s are just better than all of these, so I'm not gonna put the Tin T2s or the How's It Sound Hard Mirror here because they would just erase everything from this table. So yeah, the RE400 and the E1000 is basically what you're gonna get for if you're gonna look for a neutral sound. If the MT1 is basically a bit more exciting sounding than these two. It's a bit more energetic, especially in the treble region, and also quite some in the bass region. So yeah, it's a bit more V-shaped sounding than these two. However, it has that type of shoutiness that these two don't have, and these two have a bit more thicker vocals, I guess, than the MT1. So that's probably it. About the technical region, I think the MT1 is actually superior against these two because the MT1 has quite a bit more instrument depth, that has a bit more texture in the bass, and has a bit more clarity up top. It's just, this have superior technicalities for some against something that is like 3 times more expensive. So impressive feat of the MT1s against the Blano 3s. Why I picked the Blano 3s over the Blano 1s or the Blonde Mini, because I like the Blano 3s more than those two. However, if I'm gonna just look at mid-range and treble, this is better. The Blano 3 is still better. However, if I'm gonna look at the whole package in terms of tuning, tonality, and the technicalities, I would put them at the same place, or maybe on a good day, MT1 would be higher. Because the technical prowess, the control of the MT1, especially in the bass, is quite fascinating. But then again, to note that this is because I put technicalities over tonality. If I have a bit more preference in tonality over technicalities, just a bit more towards the tonality of the spectrum, I would definitely still pick the Blano 3s over the MT1s. So depends on your priorities, I guess. So it has been quite a long video. I don't know if it's quite longer. Yes, it's a bit longer. I guess that's it for the review. See you next time. Godspeed.